Imagine ruling the entire Mediterranean superpower elite just to get completely wiped off the map due to terminal overconfidence. We think ancient empires fell to unstoppable superweapons, but usually they just fell to bad leadership. The absolute worst thing that can happen to a nation is winning a war too easily early on. When your signature general marches elephants over the Alps, your elite senate assumes you are completely invincible. You stop updating your military strategy and assume your rival will simply roll over forever. This is when the overconfidence trap snaps shut, turning a legendary superpower into historic rubble. Carthage spent years shouting orders at the sea, fully believing they owned the global trade maps. They strutted into negotiations completely blind to the giant geopolitical bear trap at their feet. Believing your rival is weak makes you treat high-stakes international diplomacy like a casual joke. They used their legendary wealth as a shield, forgetting that gold cannot fight iron spears. They literally sat back reading textbooks on trade, while Rome actively studied how to build warships. The moment the Romans copied their ship designs, the Carthaginian reaction was pure arrogant denial. They stared at real defensive warning signs and assumed it was a temporary border glitch. They held up outdated mercenary strategies like a shield, leaving themselves completely exposed to invasion. Trying to buy your way out of a foundational military crisis is a total logistical nightmare. As the Roman legions rolled in, the wealthy elite treated the threat like a mild inconvenience. They got so tangled up in internal Senate politics that they couldn't make a single defense plan. They tried to force the geopolitical tides to move with money instead of matching Roman discipline. When things tanked, the elite politicians immediately blamed their own generals instead of taking responsibility. Without a unified defensive strategy, their ancient empire spun in circles as their territory melted away. The legendary arrogance quickly evaporated, leaving them staring blankly at empty granaries and broken ports. They held on to their prideful trading monopolies until the Romans marched directly through the gates. They ended up playing a desperate political game, completely blinded by their glorious golden past. Putting up a stop sign against a relentless rival just gets your entire civilization run over. Complaining to the gods about macroeconomics won't recover an empire that refused to adapt. They tried to cut themselves free from treaties, only to realize they were tied to ruin. They overanalyzed tiny trade margins while entirely missing the massive legions landing on their shores. You cannot sweep a massive multi-front military failure under an expensive rug and look smart. The historical hype completely deflated, leaving the global trade kings in the quiet reality of defeat. They looked through upside-down binoculars, praying for a tactical miracle that was never going to come. Closing your eyes and walking away doesn't change the fact that your capital city is surrounded. Flashing an emergency distress signal is brutal when you spent centuries calling everyone else barbarians. Relying strictly on foreign mercenaries without a loyal home army always ends in an explosion. The universe eventually delivers a giant reality check stamped right across your imperial borders. Trying to judge your enemy's morals won't fix your own terrible military execution on the battlefield. They carried a heavy bag of emotional political choices until the entire system ripped open. You absolutely cannot fix a foundational imperial crisis with a tiny diplomatic band-aid solution. When the outer walls blow up, the primitive urge to pack up and run becomes real. The allies leave, the wealth is gone, and you face the brutal siege completely alone. They let the diplomatic channels collapse because they were terrified of facing their absolute reality. The truth hits. The biggest threat to Carthage wasn't Rome, it was the politicians in the mirror. Trying to look cool while losing your entire civilization is the ultimate hallmark of ego failure. Looking for short-term political shortcuts is a guaranteed way to get trapped by historical reality. They had incredible wealth but were completely blocked by a brick wall of their own arrogance. You have to erase the myth of your own perfection if you ever want to survive. A storm of bad consequences hovers the exact second you think you're above basic competition. They expected history to tip in their favor based on reputation, but reality doesn't care. Taking off the oversized helmet of arrogance is the single most liberating thing a leader can do. Throw out the ego-driven imperial pride and focus on building flexible, realistic adaptation strategies. Drop the entitlement, accept the hard data, and stay humble enough to keep learning from mistakes.